first episode of X versus Z First Watch, and the movie was
The Crow with Lee.
With Brandon Lee. Came out in 1994. I chose this one because, not to bury the lead, but the next movie is going to be watched is the remake. The remake. So what are your thoughts for a movie that's 30 years old?
Ow, that made me feel old. But,
You're not 30, dude.
But it's 3 years before I was born. But, okay, so what I was thinking when it came to The Crow is I thought it had a lot of style in it, and I really liked that style. It was also very sad and, bittersweet, which I enjoyed. Some of the effects didn't really age well, like the effects of the guys falling out of windows and stuff, that really looked weird, especially by today's standards. Other than that, I think the action was really good, though the shaky cam was a bit much, and there was a few too many cuts in it to really sometimes understand what was going on. But overall, I thought that was a really, really enjoyable, fun, revenge comic book superhero movie. I thought that was really fun.
And did you like the violence?
Yes. I loved all
solid
the bits
violence.
Yes, I loved all the bits with the swords. That's always fun to me. I love how it ended with the guy taking I don't remember what it, the cross from the top of the church, turning it, yanking it out. It's like a sword now somehow.
Yeah, like the spire thingy.
Yeah, and so he has a sword fight using the cross from a church against a katana in the rain on the roof. That's so ridiculous. I love it.
Hang on a second. Imperfections, episode 1. That's okay. Well, please, you'll live with it because we're figuring out all the tech shit. So, okay. For movies like this, which is very macabre and very emo-ish and dark as hell, one of the things that really works for me when I'm watching a movie like this, and it's such an essential thing because. Listen, it's not super big budget movie like the kind of shit we see now, so there has to be a lot of creativity in it. And I think if you're going to put your money into something, you better have a really good villain. And the villain in this is dark as hell, kind of funny.
Yes.
Really sinister. I don't know the actor's name. We got to figure out the actor's name, and I'll put it in post.
Yeah.
Because I've seen him in other stuff, but
yeah,
I've never known him more than this.
Familiar,
yeah, I've seen him in a lot of other things.
That's the type of performance where you see the guy playing it, and it's he had so much fun doing that.
Oh, dude, he did. And one of the other things was, I have to admit, I did not remember or know what city this was supposed to have taken place in.
Neither do I.
It was Detroit.
It was Detroit?
It says it on the little TV screen when they're talking about Devil's Night.
Oh,
and
okay.
I'm like, God, no wonder Detroit's such a hellscape. Is this really what Detroit looks like?
I mean, it's a stylized comic book version of Detroit, so...
Yeah, but even if it's a stylized comic book version of Detroit, it's not that much of a leap for people to imagine that Detroit could be that effed up. So it's just hey, what's the worst city we could pick? They could have picked New York or Chicago or any other place. It was
Chicago doesn't suck that bad.
No, but I mean, if you're thinking about crime-ridden cities in a dystopian comic book version, hyper stylized version of a city, and they chose Detroit. Okay, that's fine. And I mentioned during when we were watching the movie that this felt like a stand-in for Gotham. Yeah. It felt more claustrophobic than it felt very claustrophobic, and while it's a big city, it felt contained.
Yes, I did like that part.
One of the things that you may not have known about this, which is really cool, and one of the features of the movie, is all the shots of the city, the pan shots where they're flyovers. Yep. That's all miniatures. The whole thing was models and
I love it when they do that because that means they can really mess with it and just have it be as gothic or as kooky as they want, and I think they really did that well with this movie.
That's really good filmmaking too. That's real craft there.
Yeah, I mean that's why I say honestly, if they're gonna do a big flyover of a city that's here's a comic book version of a city, do miniatures because that way you can really futz with it. You can have you can change the Chrysler building to this swirling, twirling thing because mad scientists took over the world or something. You can really have fun with it.
Airplanes. The other thing, I always like low-budget movies because you really feel the creativity in the movie. I feel like when you have a limited budget, that they really put effort into the models, and they almost have to make the city and the environment very well thought out.
Yes.
And with the whole thing with the rain, I mean that really adds to it. The fires obviously, but there's steam everywhere. I mean, you really feel like the city is dying, so to speak.
Yeah.
Alive but dying. And one of the things they do too often in movies that I don't like anymore is, especially comic book movies, if we're going to call this a comic book movie, but I hardly think people would recognize this as a comic book movie. I mean, technically it is, because the source material is comic based, but I don't like redeemable villains.
Yeah,
You know, I want somebody who's purely evil.
There's a place for redeemable villains, but it's been overdone and overused. The issue we're running into now is the same issue that people have with superhero movies in general. It's just oversaturation. Every villain, from Disney to Marvel, or from, the kids' movies to the adult movies, is like, I'm some tragic character and blah, 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 blah. No, just give me a psycho every once in a while who enjoys being an evil son of a gun.
Well, not only that. I mean, the premise of the movie is like this romantic, beautiful couple on their wedding night is brutally murdered.
The day before their wedding
The
night.
day before their wedding night. Dude, nobody with it who's redeemable is going to be responsible for that, Did you recognize you had a Ghostbuster in there?
Yes, I was like, hey, it took me a little bit, but I recognized, but like midway through, I'm like, wait a minute, what's his name in Ghostbusters?
Ernie Hudson.
Yeah, I know it's the
Winston
actor's
Zedmore.
Winston. Yeah, like, that's Winston, that's Ernie Hudson.
Yeah, let me just say something real quick about Ernie Hudson. Ernie Hudson is one of those actors that I'm just happy to see in any movie. Like Michael Biehn.
Yeah.
And there's just something about him that carries weight. Like, he carries the way he as this cop who's screwed up and all this stuff, and as principal, he carries the burden of accepting the bullshit that happens to him, but going for it anyway. He
reminds me a lot of like he's basically that tenacious everyman in a lot of the things that I've seen him in, where he's not, a scientist or a superhero or, an undead guy. He's just a dude doing a job, and it's like, okay, this weird stuff is happening, but I gotta push through it, which is more relatable to me than someone like Batman, who's got, billions of dollars, but at the same time has an iron will to do whatever needs to get the job done.
Yeah, he's also us. I mean,
yeah,
the audience needs an access point to get in there. What'd you think about the little girl?
I'm not going to say I had an issue with it, but it's more so I could see exactly what was going to happen to her almost every time it was about to happen.
As an actor.
Oh, as an actor. I don't think she did a bad job. I
think she was fine, for it. She felt like she fit that movie. She was just kind of like...
I mean, the whole movie has this sort of awkward, weird vibe to it, and I think she matched that pretty well.
Yeah, it was more important for her to match the vibe than to command the screen.
Yeah.
And of course, listen, we got to talk about the elephant in the room. Brandon Lee, who I thought we were robbed. I thought cinema had been robbed of a career that could have been extremely satisfying and really bright, because even if this was like his first or second movie or whatever, I don't even know which, if it was his first movie or his last, because he was killed during the making of this movie, which very tragic that it happened.
Absolutely horrible. Because every time we get to see him just acting, like even when there's no dialogue, like at the very start where he's just stumbling through after crawling out of the grave, was just like really, I don't want to say powerful, but he really sold the disorientation and then the rage, and then at the very end,
the sadness.
Yes, the sadness, and then at the very end, after all was said and done, the relief. And I love that shot near the very end where, she's pulling, where, his girlfriend's ghost or whatever, spirit, is holding him, and you see him, he the first part of his face in the shadow, and the part we see is the makeup, and then she turns and it's the regular part without the makeup, without the death, without any of that, and it's just him. I love symbolic shots like that. It's so satisfying to me.
I'll tell you about this. There was something about movies back in the day, and I have the context is that before everything was inundated with CGI, people are just kind of like used to practical effects. So there's less questioning of the reality of a certain shot or whatever, because as I have the experience of being not growing up in that era. I was probably 19 when this movie came out, but it was just the main, for movies like this, you're used to practical shots, but you suspended disbelief, and it didn't even enter your mind, because for all the action, which is solid, I agree with you about cutting. I realize, for whatever complaints I have about Zack Snyder, the man knows how to put action on screen.
Oh yeah,
And
I'm gonna say this: if Zack Snyder was in charge of the choreography and like fight scenes of the DCEU movies, that would have been great. But have someone who actually knows superheroes in charge of the rest of it.
yes,
But we're not getting on that.
that's a whole nother tangent, and we will address that at some point in time. That's a rabbit hole you're not going to go down. We'll never recover from.
Yeah.
But Nolan's not great about that stuff, about showing action either. Like the fight scenes, it's not great. It's all too much choppy cutness to show the action.
No.
But it also shows what a point you said, which is, I think the acting is so good in here generally across the board. Like the bad guys are real bad guys. It's extremely satisfying watching them die.
And they're just horrifyingly evil and unrepentant about it. I like that. I think the worst thing for me was the lady. I don't even think they ever said her name, but her just being so obsessed with eyes. I'm like, oh no, don't.
Dude, that sister, that was the creepiest chick I've ever seen. His sister, that incestual weird.
Yeah.
Dude.
That's some Jaime Lannister, Cersei Lannister type shit right there.
Yeah, but God, man, I want to give some credit to one costume designer.
Oh my God, yes.
And the set designer and
Those
the
guys.
set decorator.
Yes.
Like
all the people who were in charge of the atmosphere of the movie.
Dude, they nailed that shit.
They didn't just nail it; they knocked it out of the park. It was so good. Everything about it had this
lived-in feel.
It's lived in. It's grungy. It's gothic. It's dark. It's just this. It's this oppressive atmosphere, and it's like, okay, you're not gonna get your knight in shining armor here. You're gonna get some like evil undead guy who's not even out for justice. He's out to kill people.
You feel the evil in this movie.
Yes.
There's certain movies, and you know what, man? Tell you what, you can nail a villain, you can nail the evil, and you really understand the atmosphere of the movie. You can make up for a lot of whatever is the shortcomings of it.
Yeah, like, I will say one thing. If you're going to watch this movie, if you have epilepsy, be very warned. There are a lot of flashing lights in this. This movie needs to come with a seizure warning.
Oh, I don't know. Kids play video games all the time.
And sure they have seizure warnings in front of them.
Do they really have seizure warnings?
Some of them do, yeah. A lot of them. Because they realize, okay, people have epilepsy, and we should let them know, hey, be careful. Also, there are plenty of games that have different settings that you can turn on.
That didn't even pop up on my radar. Did you pay attention to any of the music that was going on? Cause
you see, I don't think I paid real attention to the music because it was just so good. All it did was draw me in further.
They used it very judiciously as well.
Yes.
I always like that. And one of the things is, like, there's a song by The Cure, which is like one of my all-time favorite bands, especially if you grew up at the time period I grew up. I've always loved The Cure. By the way, Disintegration was one of the greatest albums of all time. Thank you, South Park. You were 100% right about Robert Smith. And that song, Burn, when he's jumping over the rooftop. I was like, man, they knew exactly what they're doing. Not to mention Trent Reznor. I mean, Nine Inch Nails is in this. Another great song. So I thought they really nailed the music in it as well.
Okay, one thing I'm curious about. The song that Eric is playing when he's on the guitar and everything, like, was that just me or did that sound like some weird version of the Star Spangled Banner?
I don't know, man. That didn't even, like, pop up on my radar, dude.
Oh, no, not Star Spangled Banner. It was like is it the Star Spangled Banner? Whatever.
One of those American songs?
Yeah, but it sounded
You
like
the national anthem or something?
that one, national anthem.
Yeah, the national anthem.
Like I heard that.
I don't know, but I really liked that he was riffing on the roof,
yes.
and then you just destroyed the shit out of that.
It was so freaking moody when he's up there without the shirt on in the rain with the guitar, and then the next time we see him with the guitar, he's just riffing and then just smashes it.
You know what would have been cool? I don't know who directed The New Crow, which is what we're going to be watching, to compare.
Yeah.
And you can't compare to me. It's like when you got the 30-year gap between movies, even if it's a beloved IP, which I don't know. This is a cult favorite of mine, and I've watched this movie probably about 10 times in my life, and I've loved every time. And I'm so happy I saw it with you, dude.
Yes.
Like. It's one thing to show
thank you for showing me this movie because it's really
good.
Dude.
It's one thing to force somebody to watch a movie because your impression of it at the time is like, oh, I love this movie, you're gonna love it. Well, obviously, like we've watched a couple movies together where I was like, ape shit over it because I grew up on it, and then you were like, yeah, but you picked it apart. That doesn't bother me. You pick it apart.
Yeah.
But it also speaks to the timelessness of the quality of the movie that it transcends nostalgia for the person who saw it at the time that it came out.
Well, what I'm going to say is, like I said, I think earlier this week, was you got to see the good and the bad in the movie. Like, there are some things where I'm like, wait, when did that happen? How did he get there? Like, where did he get all the tape on his body? Where did that come from?
But
that's nothing. That is a nothing nitpick. But that's the type of thing that I have, unfortunately, because of some of the more popular channels that I watched when I was younger, I've been sort of trained to pick up on.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong, it's stupid. It doesn't do anything to the movie.
No, I know, but if you're an editor in a room, and you show him putting on makeup and putting on a long sleeve shirt and finding boots out of the trash, then at some point you have to trust the audience to believe that okay, he found the tape somewhere, and it's just a costume design choice without knowing it has to have a specific function or whatever.
The scene where he is putting on the makeup, though, that one really did feel just... I don't know if it was just the music or the editing or the acting, or it's the movement of the actor himself, but that felt so vitriolically angry, and I loved it.
Yeah, he was committing to whatever that mask spoke to him,
Yeah.
It was just like... Maybe I'm missing some more symbolism there, but God, he looks so... See, to me, like, everybody talks about the Joker. It's an iconic villain, and it's an iconic look, but there is also something cult iconic. I don't know if those things can coexist, being cult and iconic.
Well, it's iconic
about the look of the Crow. And they've been trying to remake this damn movie for years, dude. And the thing is... I don't know how, what's his face, Skarsgård's going to do. I love that guy. And I know Jason Momoa was attached to a new one. But,
Momoa was the bad guy.
So many times the actor has to dictate whether or not the property is a viable property. And there's only a handful of people that could probably play the Crow and pull it off like Brandon Lee did. Rest in peace, Brandon Lee. Do you have any final thoughts or questions, or how do you feel about watching movies that are old like this?
I've always enjoyed it. It's just a matter of I need someone to watch them with because I studied film school. I went to film school for a while, so I know a lot of the history of film and all the X, Y's, and Z's. And my favorite horror film of all time is Nosferatu from 1924.
Never seen it.
I'm going to make you watch that because it's such a good, creepy movie. I love it. And also, it has like some of the first bits of special effects where they use shadows to really like emulate power. It's really cool. But I love watching older movies. I think it's really important to not only see some of the all-time cult classics, but I'm also hoping we can watch some of the worst in the previous generation because there's always something fun about seeing this is where they messed up here, and here's how we learn from it.
We got to do an episode, like a separate, not channel, but like a separate special feature of the worst of the worst.
Yes, I agree.
Or a fun, love it, hate it so much you love it.
Yeah. Or do you have any last remarks you want to?
No, but I do want to say that. By the way, my name's Chris Campbell, and
I'm Morgan Reilly.
Morgan Reilly and I have been friends for a couple of years now, and we realized that when we worked together, that time went by a lot faster when we were talking, and I always appreciate the fact that Morgan, while he hasn't seen all the movies I've seen, and this just kind of for now going to be the crux of this channel. There are going to be times that he's going to be showing me stuff I haven't seen. He just said he saw Nosferatu, which
Yes.
I have not seen yet, and it's one of those classics I've been wanting to watch. But more importantly, I just I love how passionate you are about the things you are passionate about.
Yeah.
And I always liked that we had a good back and forth. It also made me a lot more irritated with the other people in there who couldn't provide the same kind of conversation.
That's one thing I will say. No one gets my jokes. Like, some guy, is like, this thing splashed me on the face. It sucks. I'm like, well, good luck with that, Harvey. No one got the Batman joke.
That's a deep cut for a Batman.
His name is Harvey Dent. That's not a deep cut.
Okay. I'm not going to give you shit about it because I'm constantly quoting movies without any regard of whether or not the person gets the reference. It's totally a self-serving thing that I do, and it's also it's also a subconscious filter of inviting people into my world that I think are worthy of my weirdness, and you are one of those people. So, episode 1 is in the books. Thank you for joining us for talking about The Crow. And the next movie, we're going to be doing mostly classic movies, but when it's warranted, we're going to be doing a lot of reviews of first-run movies. And the next movie we will be doing will be the Crow,
the Crow
2024
remake.
Crow remake.
Yes. Which I'm excited to see now, because I'm wanting to see what they do different and what they keep. But I'll be honest, I'm a bit of a crybaby, so whenever I was looking at the funeral scenes and the scenes in the graveyard, I was starting to tear up a little bit because I'm a freaking crybaby.
Yeah, we have a word for that. Bitch.